Hello everybody and welcome back to another Kings of War tournament report. I'm Visibly Riley, and today I thought I'd go through the recent event I attended in Portland, Oregon called the Rose City Rumble. This event was held the 21st and 22nd of June 2019, and the rule set was pretty basic, where at least for this area, where it was a 2250 event held with 5 games over 2 days. It ended up having the Clash of 19 set. You could bring historicals, and then for a bit of flavor we use blackjack scoring. So blackjack scoring, in case you're not aware, is an interesting scoring method where you have 21 total points available to you for a game for both you and your opponent to get. If you win the game, you start with 14. If you draw, you both start with 10, and then if you lose, you get 7. Now notice that if you draw, you automatically lose a point, right? So it's only 20. Things get a little bit more interesting in the scenario bonus, which is to say, in blackjack, it's not just enough to win, it's not win by an inch or win by a mile. It doesn't matter like normal in Kings of War. It matters how big of a win you get. So for example, in Control, there are 6 table six table areas, right? To get the bigger the differential between how many points your opponent owns and how many points you own determines how much of a differential you get, which can be up to, I believe, a +4, -4 in blackjack as a whole. Now, next up, you have the attrition bonus, right? So the attrition point bonus is more straightforward and is the same for all scenarios. Starting out, you have a 0 to 745 point differential, which gets you a plus and minus 0, right? So then you've got a 750 to 1245, which is a +1 -1 differential. So you get +1 if you're in the black and -1 if you're in the red. Then you got 1250 to 1845, which is +2 -2, and 1850 plus is +3 -3. Now keep in mind that to get 1850 plus, even if your opponent has 2250 points in their army and you get literally every one, you can only lose 400 points to get that. So it is very difficult to get a 21 point victory in this. So I don't know, it's an interesting idea. And so we're going to be going through games 1 through 3 in this video, and then 4 and 5 day 2 I'll do in a different video. So let's move forward onto my list. So here is my Empire of Dust list that I brought this time, which opens with the Mummy's Revenge formation, which involves a Cursed High Priest. I gave mine the Banner of the Griffin and Heal 4 upgrades. Then we have 2 regiments of Mummies, followed by a Horde of Revenants with the Brew of Strength, a Regiment of Scavengers, a Horde of Revenant Chariots, a second Cursed High Priest with Heal 4, the Idol of Shobik, Mortibris, 2 Bone Giants, and the Soul Snare. So this version of the list is a mutation of the list I brought to Phalanx a little while ago, which itself was a list I built based off of the models that I had painted. So yeah, don't take this and go like, this is what Empire of Dust should look like. Even to me, it's not what it should look like. It's just what I have. And anyway, it's mostly because the Phalanx list, I believe, had 2 regiments of chariots and no scavenger, and then the Idol of Shobik was downgraded to a Pharaoh on chariot. The reason for this one is that I wanted to paint up my Idol of Shobik model real quick, or the one I have right now, because I don't like... it's hard to find a Bone Giant that I like, because I want it to be in the same scale as the Games Workshop one I have. I'm not paying the $55 or $60 that people want for that Games Workshop model. It's not good enough for that. And then the other Bone Giant I have is just way too big, so the Reaper one. So instead I have an idol, a model I bought to convert from my Idol of Shobik. I think I'll use that as the second Bone Giant once I get it painted. So I was like, so I'll paint that one up as the Shobik and then eventually swap it out while I work on my Pharaoh on Royal Chariot later, right? So it still needs to be finished, conversions and stuff like that. So yeah, and then I got hit by a real killer workflow. So for the past while, I've been working 80-hour work weeks on split shifts for multiple clients, and it's just been hell. So I did not get around to painting any of this stuff, and I brought a random model as my Idol of Shobik. So anyway, let's move forward. Anyway, the list itself, I think it's okay. It's very elite, very low drop. It's only 12 drops, and 4 of it, 4 units in that cannot contest or grab objectives. So a weird list. But anyway, let's move on to game 1. So game 1 was against the Herd, and this was actually a challenge match where my opponent had challenged me on Facebook. And I pay some attention. Facebook is the worst. And I would love it so much if the Kings of War community didn't use it. It's such a pile of garbage, but they do, so I'm there too. Anyway, someone posted up that they wanted a challenge match with me, and I've just been so out of it that I completely forgot to give a reply at all. So instead, I showed up on Saturday morning after driving down Saturday night. And here's the thing about driving. It's about 2.5 hours from Seattle to Portland, and at 9 at night, it took us 4 hours to get there because no matter what, there's at least an hour of traffic on I-5 and 405. It just sucks. So anyway, I get down there. I was super tired, and I showed up the day of, and my opponent was like, do you want to do the challenge match for me? And I was like, oh, yeah, totally. And normally he plays Abyssal Dwarves in a very shooty Abyssal Dwarf list. I've played him in every event I've played in, at least for the past 1.5 years or so. And, like double mortars and a bunch of the rocket launchers and then some decimators. And then showing up with Herd with literally 0 shooting was a bit of a palate cleanse. So anyway, let's look at their list, or rough approximation of it. We start with 2 regiments of Spirit Walkers, followed by a regiment of Tribal Longhorns, 3 regiments of tribal warriors, then a horde of guardian brutes, 3 troops of beast pack, 2 regiments of giant eagles, a horde of stampede, the avatar of the father, a shaman with aura of heroism 2 and Mirrodin's amulet, and a tribal totem bearer with the loot of insatiable darkness. This list is 40 points down, and now that I look at it, I think those 40 points are that the stampede were elite and the guardian brutes were +1 speed, but I don't remember exactly for sure, so I'm not going to redo the slide. But as for the list, I think it's interesting. I really like the idea here where 6 regiments of Herd units. It could be good. It looks like I don't know, it kind of looks like orcs to me, but obviously it gets that Pathfinder and it doesn't lose the wizard synergy that orcs have with the God Speakers, so it might be pretty cool. Beast Pack, of course, are always good. Giant Eagles are interesting. Stampede are great. Guardian Brutes are great. I'm not a big fan of the Guardian of the Avatar of the Father, but everything else in it I think is excellent. So let's move forward. Here we see the table, and real quick, let's go through the terrain. So in the bottom left or bottom right, we have a height flat piece of terrain, so it's not even height 0. Right above it, we have a height 4 building. To the left of that building, we have a height 6 cork forest. Above that forest, we have another height flat piece of terrain under the Herd army there. Right on over here to the left, we have a height 2 hill. Right below it, a rather large height 6 forest. And then finally, over here, we have a second height 2 hill. There might be some terrain somewhere off here to the left, but I'm not exactly sure what it is, so we won't talk about it just yet. Yeah, an interesting amount of terrain, not too much in the middle here, so I'm feeling good about this Herd matchup as I have no Pathfinder and my opponent has quite a bit, since it's the Herd special army role. Let's talk about the scenario though real quick. So the scenario we played was Ransack, and Ransack in Blackjack, I think it gives you a random D3+1 or D3 tokens each normally, but this one in Blackjack you just get a set amount, which is 7. That is a lot of objective tokens. So you get 7 objective tokens. 1 is placed dead center in the table. Then we have each player gets 3 objective tokens. 2 are going to be these black ones, and 1 is going to be this red one. So each player places them. They have to be more than 12 inches apart and more than 3 inches from impassable, which is stuff like this house and of course the board edges themselves. So that is the placement, and then they're color coded, or at least mine are. So the center objective is this turquoise objective. That is worth 3 VP if you control it at the end of the game. You control objective markers by being within 3 inches and having the highest unit strength within 3 inches, obviously. Then you've got these red ones, of which there are 2. So here's one, and here's the second one. Those are worth 2 VP if you control them at the end of the game. And then you have the black one. So we have 1, 2, and 3. There's one, it's probably off to the, in fact, I remember it being off to the left here. Those are worth 1 VP if you control them at the end of the game. So that's the idea. It's pretty simple. And let's move forward and look at the army. Oh, shoot. I forgot this has a lot fewer pictures. So first off, starting on the herd side, this is a unit of eagles. It actually looks a little small for eagles. I think they're large cab, aren't they? Which means they'd be on 50s, right? So they'd be 150 by 50 instead of 120 by 40. But maybe they've got a rule or something. Whatever, doesn't matter to me. So these are the eagles right in front of them, the first beast pack. This large model is the avatar of the father. Then these guys here are going to be the spirit warriors, and they look a lot like the tribal warriors, but it wasn't really all that confusing to me due to the base work. So we've got the spirit warriors right here. Behind them, these are the guardian brutes. Then to the right of the guardian brutes, of course, this is the stampede. In front of them, a single beast pack. Then we have 1, 2, 3 tribal warriors, and then behind them we have the longhorns. To the left of the longhorns, or my left, right, is the shaman. Then off to the right, this is the ASB, and then we have finally the 2nd regiment of eagles and the 3rd troop of beast pack. So a pretty central layout, great deployment, I think. And yeah, let's look at the Empire of Dust real quick. So starting on the left, we have my Soul Snare, then the 1st Regiment of Mummies with Mortibris behind them. Then we have the Horde of Revenants with Brew of Strength with, this is Shobik today. So Shobik's model. To the right of Shobik, we have the 1st Curse High Priest. This is the one in the formation with the Banner of the Griffin. Then we have the Mummies here with another Cursed High Priest behind them. The Horde of Chariots with the Scavengers behind them, and then both the Bone Giants. My idea was that I want the Giants to be around all this rough terrain since they have Strider, and the beasts, the herd might push so far into me that I'm going to be charging out of this. So I wanted the Giants over there. And everything else I wanted in this central area, right, where I can cut, not going into the terrain, since they're so much better at it than I am. Lastly, I want the Soul Snare ready to get rid of the chaff over here and and then start picking on the center, right? So I just want to pop these units using the Soul Snare, while the chariots over here plan to do it on this side. So that's the plan. Let's move forward on to turn 1. So turn 1 goes to the herd, and yeah, I actually won the roll-off and decided to give it to the herd, and in retrospect, this was a mistake. I've been thinking a lot, I've been playing a lot with other armies instead of Empire of Dust in my free time, and yeah, I just wasn't used to being slow and plotting again, since I allowed my opponent to take over the center line and really control the objectives, so not the best plan. On my left here, you can see the eagles have landed, but right behind this forest, so they can see my Soul Snare along with the Beast Pack. So no matter what I do here, the Soul Snare cannot get away from both of them, right? I'm going to get charged. So that's a pretty good move. The Avatar, the Father, and the Spirit Walkers. This is an interesting idea. I like this being uniform, but the Avatar of the Father really should not be right here on this straight plane, right? Because you really want to have that little lip, just to make it so you can get some jankier charges, such as corkscrews or turning off the ability to get multi-charged onto this. It's not going to be relevant just yet, but I still like to be in good practice, and where you are each turn obviously heavily dictates where you're going to be, right? So this could cascade into a bad movement, but we'll see. The Guardian Brutes, of course, run up. The Stampede are pretty well protected right now, since I don't have that much shooting in my army, and the Beast Pack are in the front, so I'm going to have to get rid of them. And then we've got the Tribal Warriors just running up in their little trio with the Longhorns behind them, along with the support heroes. So a pretty solid setup. You can see the ASB here is giving the Inspire to the Chaff on the right. So good deployment, good move. And that's turn 1, since the herd have no offensive shooting whatsoever. And we move to turn 1 for the Empire of Dust. So first off, I decide to take the Soul Snare out of the woods because at least let's not be seen by this, especially the Avatar of the Father is speed 9. So if we're going to get charged, let's get charged by Chaff. So we move back a little bit. Everything else, it looks like, let's roll a picture back. Yeah, everything else just advances forward. I advanced out of the charge range of the bulk of the army. The Avatar of the Father could charge in on his own. Well, not quite on his own. There's a beast pack and then these birds, right? Into my mummies because I'm touching the forest here, but I'm not super worried about getting charged by an Avatar in the front and then beast pack. Even with beast pack and the eagles in the flank, no, they couldn't fit because of the Soul Snare. So either of those units, I'm not particularly afraid of fighting me in the flank, especially as I'm at that +1 nerve due to Banner the Griffin here, and then the Iron Resolve. My units move up almost in a line, so I hold back the Revenants by just a skosh to make sure that the mummies can get multi-charged, but the Revenants cannot. Just because, I don't know, again, it cascades out, and generally I would reverse this with allowing the Revenants to get charged instead of the mummies, but not what I did today. The Giants decide to just roll forward into the train since they don't really care about it. And again, they're staying out of the charge of this. They don't care if anything else here charges them. Just getting ready to collapse in. If this decides to move into the center, right, my Giants can then swoop around and get some weird surges going. So that's the plan. The chariots see no reason to move because they've got clear shots onto the chaff, and who cares? I keep my chaff back since they'd be great for grabbing late turn objective grabbers or using them to block this purely melee army. So yeah, I need to keep them back for now. And everything else just sort of meanders about with the Shobik deciding to change his facing just a little bit, or change its facing just a little bit to make sure that I could always do some fallback maneuvers and then some surge with Shobik if I want to. And that's it with my shooting. So here is the end of shooting. It goes super well, just crazy. So first off, the Soul Snare kills off the dogs. I do decide that I've got Mortibris here for Lightning Bolt 4. So I go, okay, well, Soul Snare go for the dogs. Mortibris will just go for luck, and I get it. So the dogs die. I do 1 wound to these eagles, and I waver them with either, I think that's a boxcar or maybe an 11. But either way, they are wavered. My chariots here kill off the beast pack there, so that's great. Everything's going according to Keikaku. So, yep, pretty cool. Moving on to turn 2. Turn 2, that herd army is getting very close and are very healthy. So on the left, the eagles that were here just fly off Kaka to the even deeper. Oh, here is the last objective marker, just off here in the corner. Then we've got the Avatar of the Father moving forward and just pivoting in the woods, getting ready to get some flank charges going. What are these guys? Spirit Walkers decide to enter the woods to make sure that they've got a charge on the Soul Snare if it just sits there, right? Just line of sight stuff. And then the Beast Pack run in front of my line, so now my Revenants and Mummies are trapped, along with, of course, Shobik, who's trapped behind them. And then the Tribal Warriors just move forward and make sure that the other mummies aren't going to be too big of a problem. The last chaff unit over here, the Eagles, runs in front of both of my Giants, and this is a mistake I made. My Giants should be spread out just a little bit more, right? So having 1 Giant here, 1 Giant here, to make sure that if the Eagles choose to charge, they don't chaff up both those units. But small mistake. The Eagles do charge into this Giant and do a few wounds, right? I've got a dial out, so it's like it's not enough for a roll. I think it's 2 or 3 wounds, maybe. That's still a lot for an Eagle unit, I think, because they're 4+ melee with maybe Thunder 1, Thunder 2. But that's about it, since my opponent, again, just is a pure melee army. The Shaman does cast Aura of Heroism onto the Stampede and gets 1 tick of it, so the Stampede are +1 nerve, and so are all these units. So that's the move, and we move forward to turn 2 for the Empire of Dust. So, oh yeah, just a cool shot. I actually really, I mean, it's the best part of playing in tournaments, and I know there's the battle score people and whatever, man, but the best part about playing in tournaments is just seeing armies that are painted. Even mine that I haven't spent too much time on, that it's just great. Anyway, Turn 2 for the Empire of Dust. So first off, I decide to take my birds, and they just fly over and chaff up the Avatar and both the or at least these tribal warriors are chaffed. And that's exactly what these guys do. They just run forward, die, whatever. My Soul Snare moves out of the charge range or the charge arc of the Avatar of the Father, and these Spirit Walkers I think could still charge it, but whatever, and go for the kill on the Eagle. It's got 1 wound on it. Soul Snare could always, do pretty well. These units move in on the dogs to clear that chaff out of the way. So that's the plan. These mummies, so they had a mix of charges. I could have charged these. Well, in the end I couldn't because I wanted these guys in there. But I could have charged the tribal warriors, any of them, right? So if I charge these ones, I end up in a really weird spot because of the eagles, right? And it might have been better just because I think I turn off the flank charge if I do that. But again, I'm not super afraid of getting charged in the front by tribal warriors and in the flank by tribal warriors. It's not good, right? But it's not the worst because I am def 5. I think they're thunder 1. So maybe I should be more afraid. Both the giants go into the Great Eagles, going for that, and then the chariots plan to shoot at the tribal warriors, because if I waver these, that's just gold, right? I'll only be fighting one of these units. It's whatever at that point. And that's it. So let's see how it goes. Yeah, just a cool shot. And yeah, so I do a ton of wounds to these dogs. I don't know what it is, but of course I get my double 1. First one of the tournament on turn 2 of game 1. This is not the worst double 1, but it's still pretty bad. Just because again, this chaff is still chaffing me, so my opponent can now choose to not go into me if he wants to. And we go on to turn 3. So turn 3, the beast pack. Oh, here's the thing. My Soul Snare shot at that bird did 0 wounds. So good job. So these birds are now going to go into the Soul Snare. You can see these mummies also did pretty poorly against the tribal warriors. Didn't do them, so we're going to get a flank there. But both my giants do manage to kill off the Great Eagles. So the plan for the giant, now if I actually roll back, I think the plan for the giants was if this giant, no, I see now. I charged the middle one because these giants just had to overrun 2 inches and then they block this charge from happening. They have to charge giants and that's not going to do anything. But of course on my overrun, they go 1. So, well, this one wouldn't have done anything, but my giant goes 1. So it sucks. It happens. Yeah, so I get front charged by these tribal warriors. I get flank charged by these tribal warriors. That's not great. And then I end up getting the beast pack does just pull back with 1 million wounds, which are not marked right now, but they do have those. Because again, there's no reason to engage just yet. And then these tribal warriors are just waiting in the wings along with the spirit walkers, right? Or I guess these spirit walkers did charge into my chaff unit because again, these birds weren't. Not only were they not killed, they weren't wavered. So, and I had a lightning bolt. So I had drain life 10 on 4s and I think 2s. Great Eagles are 3 toughness, I want to say, or 3 defense. And then I had 4 lightning bolts, so another 4 and 2s. And yeah, it doesn't even look like I put any wounds on them. That's just a mess. So anyway, it goes into the Soul Snare. My opponent's Shaman casts Aura of Heroism onto the Stampede. It looks like it worked again, at least for 1. And my opponent's Loot tries to get these tribal warriors another crushing for that flank charge and fails it because that's what the Loot does when you need it. And we move forward. Here's a blurry nonsense picture. Let's look at the end of the turn. So yeah, the scavengers are easily killed off, as is the Soul Snare, which is, oh no, I did a ton of wounds there. Did 6? That's not very good actually. That's only 5 wounds out of my 14 shots on 4s and 2s. Not the best, but yeah, I didn't waver it. They kill off the Soul Snare, so that sucks. Soul Snare dying this early in the game is not good. I'm staring down the barrel of the gun here. That's also not great, but we'll see. Again, this beast pack being alive is a real pain in my butt because it makes it so my revenants cannot engage. These units didn't have to come into me, so it is what it is. I get some good luck on the right flank. So because of that failed Bane Chant, these mummies take this is their dial. They take 6 wounds total. That is nothing. So yeah, 6 wounds. They are a dash 19, so not even a roll. Oh, and this giant who took those wounds earlier from the Great Eagle, obviously through a mixture of Life Leech and Heal last turn, was healed to full. So things are looking interesting. Moving on to bottom of 3. So bottom of 3, it is a cool, it is a weird one. So again, I decided to take my mummies and revenants back into the dogs. And the reason for this is because the mummies could have gone for a charge onto these spirit walkers. But then I get flanked by these ones and probably flanked by the avatar unless I send my Shobik into the avatar, right? And that opens up the exact same problem because the avatar is actually well placed now to get that corkscrew going. So yeah, this ends up being a flank, that's a flank, and that's a front. So I don't know. I don't like those odds. I don't like them at all. And then the stampede come in. It's just a mess. So instead we go into the dogs hoping to not double one, and then I can reform myself to better face these charges. Shobik goes for a charge. I might have surged into these guys. I'm not sure if I charged or surged, but either way, I go into the Eagles. Looks like I surged with Mortibriss's help. Then I decide the Chariots did have a charge, but they cannot fit. So this is a fun bit where if we roll some picture, to a picture back. So this giant has a flank charge on these longhorns, and that could get real messy because so I can see them. I can't get away from this giant, so I need this giant to walk away, right? So I think it walks back a little bit or walks this way a little bit. I'm not sure which. To get out of the way of the giant. The giant then doesn't have to pivot more than once to hit this corner, and then get a flank charge there, and then I can surge, get a flank here. The mummies can do whatever. Unfortunately, it means the chariots cannot do much, but they do have bows, so it's fine. So yeah, I set this up. It looks like the giant walked backwards. So I set this up. This giant is now going for a surge flank charge, and then the mummies decide to go, well, the giant's got that flank charge, so they just go into the front of the tribal warriors here. It looks like they regen 1-ish wound. So going for a heal with probably this guy. Yeah, and so I had to have charged this. There's no way I surged it. Mortibriss maybe going for a heal into the mummies. And yeah, with my bows, I fire my bows into, I think, the shaman going for a lucky waver. I'm not sure exactly what happened, but you do get to see the final location of the bone giant there. And yeah, so this giant goes into the flank of the tribal warriors here, does huge damage, and double one number 2 of the tournament on turn 3. So we're on our way, guys. We're gonna win this. And here we are. Yeah, so here's the end of the turn. These guys, it looks like they're on 12. They 14 wounds because one of these would be an 8. So yeah, they're on 14 wounds there. I double one it. That sucks. This giant though does do the work, kills off those longhorns. That's great. Look at this great view now. My mummies do kill off the other tribal warriors, so that's pretty good, and end up being healed to full with my mix of heal there. So again, great. Looks like my bows did not do anything. And the revenants and mummies kill off the dogs. So the mummies decide to back up because a flank charge is bad, obviously, from the avatar of the father. But this is a 1-inch backup, right? So if I got a 3-inch backup, all of these are now front charges. If I get a 1 or 2-inch backup, these two are front charges, and only the avatar is a flank charge. And if the avatar flank charges me, I have Shobik ready to go. So yeah, it's interesting. And the revenants, of course, made it. So I think they've made it. No, this is a flank charge onto the revenants. They just can't fit. So because of this weird oblique angle, it's not going to work out. And again, because of this overhang, only one of these units is going to be able to charge me in the front, right? Because the mummies are the exact same width of these guys, and there is no corner to corner in this game. So that's it. Moving on to turn 4. Turn 4, the herd does what the herd does. We've got the avatar going into the flank of the mummies with some spirit walkers in the front. Again, couldn't get more than one, so the other spirit walkers just sit it out. Then we've got the stampede and one of the unit of tribal warriors going to the front of the revenants. That's a dicey one because the stampede, I believe, have 30 attacks, and yeah, have elite here, are wounding me on 2s, and then we've got 12 more ish attacks from these tribal warriors. So I am a -25, but still messy. The guardian brutes now have to respond to this bone giant and move forward. And then we've got the double 1 stars. Again, double 1, great rule, guys. Actually, I love double 1. I just hate the fact that you can activate, right? So, yeah, go into the flank of these mummies. Again, not super worried about it. It's, like 24 attacks on 4s with no Thunderous, so could get crushing due to... could get crushed too, actually, but whatever. I'm unwounded and at dash 19, so meh. And yeah, I think this shaman has moved to be able to cast a Bane Chant up. I think this is the likely Bane Chant target, and then pop Mirrodins this turn to get the rally up on the Stampede. And let's see how that turns out. So here's the end of the turn. My opponent does get the Bane Chant off, right, on these, and then that ends up being instrumental because, oh no! Yeah, it does get the Bane Chant off. Fails the aura here, and then also fails the Bane Chant here. So this ends up being great because my opponent, I mean, not for me, obviously, but my opponent gets, rolls pretty poorly, I believe, with one of these units, and I think it was the Avatar of the Father that rolled poorly, and just barely ekes out a kill on those mummies, like kills them by 1. So yeah, good hit there. This was a good play. Now things go well for me here in the middle. Only 13 wounds on the Revenant. I count my blessings on that, right? Because again, 30 attacks, you get like 17-ish hits, and then, you know, you fail to wound with 3 of those. So that's like 14 from the Stampede alone, right? Let alone what these Spirit Walkers, or not, Tribal Warriors are going to do. So, only 13 wounds, can't even boxcar me. Feels good. Then these mummies take, they take a few. I'm not sure what that's showing. Maybe 8 or 9 wounds. A fair amount of wounds, but not enough to kill me. And that is the end of the turn. So things are looking pretty good for the Empire of Dust, but let's see how they can capitalize on it. So I decide to take all the charges I've got. I take the charge with my giant into the flank of these tribal warriors. I take the mummies into the front of these tribal warriors, revenants into the stampede. I do get a flank charge onto the stampede with this giant. And if we roll a picture back here, right, my opponent definitely saw that this was a possibility. We were talking about it during the game, and I asked, I remember talking to him about it, and after this happened, right after I got the flank, and he was like, I just didn't see how to block it. And I'm like, I would have thrown one of these characters under the bus, right? I'm not nimble, meaning that as long as you make it so this corner, or so maybe I could kill the tribal warriors, but not the stampede, right? Don't get them flanked. So yeah, you could throw one of these characters under the bus. I will almost certainly kill it, but again, I'm a 4+ melee creature, so I might not. And then, you know, only lose at worst a character and the tribal warriors, as opposed to losing the stampede. So anyway, I do get the flank on the stampede, which is obviously bad. And then all of my, I don't have any spells to cast. If we roll a picture back again, sorry about this, you can see Shobik is just sitting here, and the Avatar of the Father turns to face Shobik after killing the mummies, while these guys turn this way. And this is another big mistake by my opponent, in my opinion, and I believe his as well, because you can see Shobik could actually see this part of the unit past the Avatar of the Father, right, because he has to fall back an inch, and then I can, with just the one pivot, go into their flank as well without, and in fact the Avatar of the Father is keeping me from hitting the terrain, so giving me a +1 to hit effectively. Oh no, I have Strider, so whatever. But anyway, so I've got a flank charge there, I've got a flank charge here, and I've got a flank charge here. This seems like it might be a brutal turn, and then and that's without any surge, so all of my wizards are free to just spam heal into the revenants, trying to get them back up. And my chariots are just sitting here, and they don't have a whole lot to do. So I believe they've got some shots for maybe the Guardian Brutes, since this wizard's actually hidden behind my giant perfectly. Or maybe I'll fire the ASP, who knows. And yeah, here is just a cool action shot. And here is the end result, and it's as you would expect. I think I do shoot at the ASB in the end. I don't do any wounds to it. No, I don't. It's hidden. Right, because he's on the hill. I think I shoot at the Guardian Brute. I don't do any wounds with my stupid 6+ hit bows, but I do manage to not double one this, so I kill it off. These mummies actually surprise me and kill a second unit of tribal warriors with a front charge. So mummies are really good, right? And it's not that I think they can't do that. It's that it's difficult to do that because again, they're a 4+ to hit unit, even with Elite and Vicious, which is amazing. They can easily just, crap out, do nothing. But yeah, they kill off a second regiment of tribal warriors to the front. The Giant and the Revenants kill off the Stampede, and that is big news. The Giant turns to face the tribal warriors, and then we'll be backed away after we resolve all this. And Shobik easily kills off the the flank charged Spirit Walkers, right? So yeah, Shobik advances forward and does it perfectly with his overrun here, getting out of the Avatar's line of sight. And my plan was, if I overrun too far, I'll get flanked by Spirit Walkers. But Shobik isn't super afraid of that because of that Def 6. So it's not good, but it's better than taking a charge from the Avatar of the Father at all. So I overrun and I do it perfectly. They don't even get a flank charge on me. So yeah, this is not looking great for the herd, but we'll see how turn 5 looks like. So turn 5 looks, apparently I forgot to take a picture of the die, but the Avatar of the Father turns towards Shobik. The Spirit Walkers here decide to go after the Revenants, because the Revenants, even after, so I'd heal 5, 9, 13 onto it, and it looks like I healed 5 wounds, including my life leech. So great dice there. Heal, it's the best. So I'm sitting on 8 wounds though. So these tribal warriors could get something going here. And you just got a shaman for some, definitely this is Aura of Heroism. So my opponent casts Aura instead of Bane Chant, but still could have gone for the Bane Chant. Oh no, I was wrong. Before when I said Mirrodin's was popped here, yeah, I guess one of the Spirit Walkers just rolled really well without getting an additional crushing, because this is showing off the crushing. So this is when the Mirrodin's is popped, gets the crush here, gets the aura there. So pretty good. They charge into my Giant, fail to kill it, then... Do they? I don't know. No, this is not that picture. That's the action shot. Cool. And here's the end of turn. It's a little blurry, but as you can see... yeah, both these units are still standing, so that's not great for my opponent. So let's move forward to Empire of Dust turn 5. So this is showing before I cast Surge, so I'm going to go for a front charge onto the Avatar with Shobik. I'm not going to be able to one-round him, but Avatar isn't Crush 4, Avatar is Crush 1 and Thunder 3. So as long as Shobik does 1 wound to him, the Avatar is going to have a very hard time taking down Shobik. So we've got the Revenant going into the Spirit Walkers. We have Mummies plus a Giant, because if we roll a picture back, yeah, these Mummies actually easily have a charge here. So yeah, the Mummies plus the Giant go into the Guardian Brutes, hoping to kill them off. We've got this Giant's actually where the base is, charging into these ASB, just looking to remove it from the table. And the Chariots are just sitting back so they can plank shots onto this Wizard. Because I'm a little weirdly spread right now, I probably could have this guy over here, right, just sitting on the hill, and then bring this around. Really, I want Mortibrus to be firing Lightning Bolt right now, which is weird because Lightning Bolt's not great, but I'd rather be going for the Surge with something like this, which of course I am going to go for the Surge with this first, and then Mort if possible, but I'd prefer the other. I do fail this Surge. This is like a 3-inch Surge. I think it's a little over 2, so Mort does have to help out. I don't get any Lightning Bolt. But here is the end result, which is, yeah, my opponent's hand is in the way, but my Revenants, it looks like they failed to kill off the Spirit Walkers, which is, that's not that bad. I get a couple wounds onto the Avatar of the Father, stripping its Thunderous but not doing anything else. I kill the Guardian Brutes, and I believe I do 1 wound with my Chariots and waver the Wizard over here. So that's just insult to injury. And then this Giant does manage to kill off the ASB and turn to face towards the table again, because again, these are the objectives that matter. But I just want to make sure that I can get the kills if I need to, because I can always just walk over here. I can walk over here, or I can turn all the way around and just be surged over there. So not that big of a deal. And in fact, that is what I do, because turn 6, my opponent just has this wavered wizard and the avatar. So the avatar goes into Shobik, does a couple wounds, but not enough for even a break check, I don't think. And yeah, that's not the last shot. This is Empire of Dust turn 6, which is I believe the avatar. No, wait, maybe the avatar backed up? I'm not sure. But either way, I don't get a Revenant charge. No, that's wrong. I'm not sure what this is showing. Eh? Yes, okay, so there's a turn 7. That's what happened in my brain, sorry. So yeah, I just decided to position myself to make sure I have all the tokens. So my chariots are taking this one, Revenants, mummies, and then I've got a giant and a giant on each objective over there. So that's the plan, and then we roll up and we get a turn 7. So turn 7, my opponent, 9 wounds on that avatar, goes back into Shobik, gets him up to 5, which is a 13, not a roll yet. So, ugh. And here is Empire of Dust turn 7. So Empire of Dust turn 7, it looks like I don't move my units, but I definitely do. Yeah, here we go. Empire of Dust turn 7. I decide to take, my mummies have the central objective still. My chariots are now holding the objective over here, the 2-pointer and the 1-pointer here, so I can send the Revenants in to try to kill the avatar off. And then I will also fall back with the Revenants, right? Just in case, right? So that's the plan, and here is the final shot. So yeah, avatar is gone. I think Mortibrus tried the lightning bolt. Yeah, so I get this this shaman up to 3 wounds because whatever, and I get some chariot shots too. 8 shots on 6s, don't do anything. So I don't table my opponent, but I do end up with a healthy victory as I shuffle papers. So this ends up being a 19-2 victory after all is said and done. I have quite a few victory points. I think I have 3 VP here, 3, 4, 6, 8, 9 VP, which is 1 off of the maximum. I just couldn't get to the other one. I have a small army, so. And then for the attrition point difference, I got a lot of attrition points because not a lot of my units are dead, but it's not quite that 1850 plus. So instead I just get a +2. So it's a 19-2 victory, and off to a good start. And we move into game 2, which was against a Trident Realm army. And Trident Realm is, oh, sorry about that, guys, is about the worst thing I think Empire of Dust can face. That ensnare is really bad. There's only, well, now I guess the Enslaved Guardians hit on 3s, but before, only Shobik, he was the only unit in the army, or it was the only unit in the army that hit on a 3+ or better, right? So that ensnare is big time for Empire of Dust. They do have a lot of shooting now. The Soul Snare can really rip up a Trident Realm unit, but we'll see. Here is my opponent's Trident Realm list, or again, an approximation of it. This is 2220, so I don't know what the items were. We open with the King Crabs formation, which involves 2 hordes of Gigas. The Gigas gain +1 speed and elite in that formation, really good. Then we have 4 regiments of Thule, interesting, followed by 3 hordes of Depth Horrors, 2 Thule Mythicans, with both have Bane Chant and 1 has Barkskin, the Siren, a Knucker, and a Kraken. So I think my only real thing in this list is that Barkskin is a useless spell. It's not. I shouldn't say it's useless. It's not as good as weakness to me. I'd prefer to have weakness any day of the week. And But even then, I probably wouldn't bring weakness. I would swap for something else, anything else. I'd probably try to get Ector into this list and teleport before I take Barkskin. But everything else I actually like. I think Thule regiments are very good. Thule Mythicans are great. The Siren's good. Again, I'd go for Ector over the Siren personally, as there's no Surge in this list. So, and with double Mythican, you could take out these Depth Horrors, right? Plop in some Water Elementals, give 1 the Nimble item, and then get Ector into, or no Ector. And then the Siren makes a lot of sense, right? Get some Surge here, right? Knock the 3 Depth Horrors down to 2 Water Elementals, and then get Surge onto the Mythicans and some items. I think that'd probably be a better list. But anyway, those are just my thoughts. Don't have to be yours or my opponent's, obviously. And here is the table. So this is a weird table. First off, we have a over here on the right center, we have a height flat piece of terrain. Right above it, we have a height, or not right above it, but above and to the left, we have a height 6 forest. Below it, this is actually a height 2 difficult, so you can go in there, but it's height 2. Then we have a height 2 hill. All the way over here, we have a huge impassable piece. This is supposed to be like height 7 or height 8. It's ridiculous. Ridiculously big. And then to its left, we have another height 2 difficult. To its left, we have a height 2 hill that my clock is on. Then we have a height 6 forest below that, and I think that's it for the terrain. So I think everything over here is very cool, very interesting terrain. This thing is a nightmare to play with, which we might see figure through in this game. So this scenario was Raise, and Raise is another weird one because Raise is you place a token in the center of the table. We had, I guess someone had made up these like pogs, which are on I think 32s or 33 mil circles, and so you're supposed to use 25s, and I get why they use the 33s. It would be completely illegible on a 25 millimeter, but that makes it so this scenario is even harder than it is anyway, because in Blackjack, this scenario has 3 objectives each for a player, and they have to be deployed in these bands in the center of the table. So there's a 12-inch band, 6 on each side from the center, right? So you have to deploy all the tokens within this, right, within that band. Look at that hot dog. So all the tokens have to be there. First off, you start with the one in the dead center of the table, always. Then you take turns deploying tokens, right? So both of us are just like, and we had to actually rearrange our tokens because we had placed, like, my opponent had placed this one, I think, just a little bit closer because it's just within 6, and then we couldn't deploy the last tokens, right? So anyway, it's just a mess. I'm not a fan of this of Raise. It's not great, at least the way I was reading it, right? So if it were, 6 inches away from enemy tokens, 12 inches from your own, right, just for the scenario, I think it'd be a little bit better. But the rest of the scenario is that it's worth 1 VP if you hold the central objective at the end of the game. Obviously, it's the same thing as the previous scenario, so be within 3 with your unit, right? Then we have, with unit strength 1 or more, and then 1 VP for the objective markers on your opponent's side of the table. So mine are the red objective markers, and I think the blue one, while my opponent's are the black ones. I don't even know where they are, to be honest. But anyway, so there's those are the objective markers we're going for. So yeah, these ones. So I'm going for the objective markers that are over here, past this this objective. My opponent's going for the ones over here. That's it. So let's go through the armies. I actually do have some pictures of my opponent's army, but none of mine. So let's start with Empire of Dust this time. So first up, we have my Soul Snare on the left here. Next to it, the Horde of Chariots, Shobik with Mortibris behind him. Then we have the Bone Giant with the Revenants with Brew of Strength to its right. Behind that, we have my first Cursed High Priest with heal 4. Then we have the Mummies to the right of the Revenants with the second Cursed High Priest with heal 4 and the Banner of the Griffin. Then the second Regiment of Mummies and the final Giant. So this, basically my entire army is deployed around this is Giant Dumb Rock. Let's split the army around it, right? So on the left here, this was the last bit of stuff I deployed. The Soul Snare has some good targets over here, right? And again, I'm just sort of using the Soul Snare to hedge a flank, right? Because it's a high value target. People are going to want to kill it. And on top of it, it can really wreck something like a Knucker or any sort of flanking troop, right? A Soul Snare is drain 10. It can just kill it. So, and no defensive rules work in terms of, like stealthy, right? Stealthy, you have cover, whatever. Soul Snare doesn't care. So, and then I've, of course, got a lightning bolt to back it up and some bow shots, 16 bow shots. So that's the plan. And then on the right, or my right, is the meat and potatoes of my army because I have there's an objective here and another one over here, right? And then the central. So I'm kind of going like, fuck that objective, right? If I get it, I get it. If I don't, I don't. I'm going for this side of the table. And let's move on to my opponent's army, which I really liked. So here's my opponent's army. I like the list, and I like the beginning of this paint scheme. I think it's going to look great. Because first off, we have the Knucker over here. So 1 Knucker. I love these bases. He was telling me that he wanted to be the shore on which other armies break, and I'm like, that is awesome, because so many Trident Realm armies are based in water, because water is a great pop effect to get people to look at your stuff, and this is an interesting take on the inverse of that. You can see the paint scheme, right? These are all the Thule models he's got. They look great. So these are Thule, and then to the right of it, the gray models here, these are going to be the whatchamacallit, the depth horrors that you're going to see. They involve the same models as the Gigas, but they are just gray plastic, so pretty easy to notice, although I did mess it up a few times in the game because I'm not that smart. Next up, we have the Kraken. This model is notoriously a nightmare to put together, but great job by my opponent. To the right of the Kraken, we have the 2nd Regiment of Thule. Behind it, we have the second horde of depth horrors. Then we have the 1st horde of Gigas here, which are the they'll be painted blue, but yeah, see, they're the same models as these. To the right of it, we have the 3rd horde of depth horrors. Then to the right, or right in front of them, the 3rd, I think, regiment of Thule. This is the Siren model. Then we have the 2nd horde of Gigas with the 2nd Thule Mythicon. I think the other Thule Mythicon is just hidden behind a unit to the left somewhere. And then we have the the 4th Thule regiment. So pretty cool, great looking army. Moving forward to turn 1. So turn 1 goes to Empire of Dust, it looks like, and we just advance up. So on the right, we're just keeping this battle line. I decided to take my giant, and again, just sort of pull off this flank, since there's nothing, there's no knuckers on my right side of the field, so I don't really have to be worried about it. My Shobit goes one way, giant goes the other way, right? Just messing around with this huge piece of impassable. I put my Soul Snare into the wood, and I actually go a little too far forward, and I'll explain why during my opponent's turn, or maybe the turn after. So, and then the chariots just move forward. This is a height 2 piece of terrain, so the chariots can see all this stuff. Nothing else can see it, except for maybe the Kraken, until they move into it. So it is a very interesting bit of terrain there. And then with my shooting the Soul Snare, I think, yeah, it shoots at these depth horrors, does nothing, or does minimal damage, right? And then the chariots do nothing, and I fire a lightning bolt at the Siren for 1, so I do damage her, so that's cool. And here we see turn 1 for the Trident Realm. Just running forward, there isn't a lot of range attacks. There aren't a lot of range attacks in this army. And here's the thing. In a battle reports a long time ago, I remember talking and going, my opponent had the Siren, right, and pulled my Chariot Horde forward, and I went, you can't cast Siren's Call onto the Chariot Horde. And at the time, I was like, oh yeah, you can't do it because you can't Wind Blast them. And I went through this whole spiel about how you can't do it, and then I was like, oh, I was conflating it with tokens. Yeah, here's the thing. You can't cast Siren's Call onto Shamblers because Siren's Call specifically states that. So I was right, I was wrong, I was right. Here we go. Might as well just say whatever I want from now on because whatever. But anyway, the Siren can only cast Siren's Call onto my birds, which I have no idea where they are. I think they're, yeah, who knows. And then my 3 on foot characters and the Soul Snare. So the Soul Snare is the best target, which is why the Soul Snare is nowhere near the Siren, because she would love to disorder it, and it's not protected by not being shambling. So my opponent decides to advance their army forward, mostly keeping out of charge range. I think this Kraken is within my charge range. Obviously these Thule are within, but it's not that big of a deal. Thule get charged. They do have Ensnare, and again, I'm melee 4+, so it's difficult for me to deal with it. But that's about it. I don't think any spells are really thrown out right now. The Siren can't cast. Barkskin doesn't do anything. Maybe Barkskin was cast, but it's 1 die, so it missed, and I didn't even notice. But anyway, moving forward. This is a great shot. I love this. Just a cool thematic lines meeting. Then we have, maybe we can find where the scavengers are. I can't, which means that they're somewhere over there. But you do get to see where the Knucker ends up, just to make sure that it's got some threatening flanks. And here we go on to, well, that's okay. So turn 2. Turn 2. this is actually the end of turn 2, but I messed up the pictures. So first off, let's roll back. The soul snare here, let's talk about what I did wrong here, which is I advanced the soul snare farther forward than I needed to, right? Because the plan is to advance the soul snare into the woods, shoot something, right, within 18, and then take the soul snare and run behind the woods when they come after you, right? Well, instead, I went as far forward to get some shots instead of just being bait, and then I'm too far forward to actually back out. So I have to kill mess with this knucker now, because these guys I can get out of the range of, thankfully, but I can't get out of the range of the knucker. It's speed 9, so yeah, I have to kill or waver it. And here are some weird shots. Turn 2. Here is an end of turn shot because it is a tournament, so things get weird with the pictures. I do take the soul snare and I shoot at the knucker, and I do waver it, so that's pretty cool. The chariots try to help. They don't do anything because they're chariots. I decide to not take. I did have a charge onto the Kraken here. I decide not to take it, and instead, so the chariots are peeking just a little bit in front of Shobik, because now between this impassable piece of terrain and my chariots, this cannot charge me. It's impossible. This cannot charge me. It's impossible. Nothing can charge Shobik because nothing is small enough in my opponent's army besides the knucker and the characters. The characters don't want to do it, and knucker is wavered. So nothing can currently charge it. The revenants and this giant do kill off the Thule, which is great. It's not that unexpected. I have 25 attacks on 5s and 2s, and then I have d6 plus 6 5s and 2s with brutal. So I do manage to get that kill though. Feels good. The revenants turn a little bit because again this is height 2, meaning that none of these units are going to be able to flank charge me, and then the units that can see me. So I'm not sure these guys can see me, but it doesn't matter. Oh no, they probably can like this. But anyway, they're in the front, so that's the plan. I've got the mummies back here just ready to countercharge, along with a giant, which can see over this terrain, so it can get some cheeky charges. And all my characters are just sort of spread around doing whatever. I think Mortibrus went over here just to make sure I could get a lightning bolt onto the knucker to make sure it gets wavered or killed. And it did. So turn... Nope, this is just an action shot. And this is turn 2 for the Trident Realm. So as you can see on the left, my opponent could not quite get the Thule into the chariots. I believe actually because if we roll back, they're just too far away. Okay, so my opponent can get the Kraken in, but then due to the placement of the Soul Snare, right, can't get another... No, you could totally get another unit. Just decides, oh, I must be out of 8 or 10 of the Gigas. That makes sense. So this is out of charge, out of charge, out of charge. These are depth horrors. Why are they out of charge? Sorry about this, guys. Oh yeah, that's a long 12. Okay, cool. So yeah, the only thing that can charge me is the Kraken. Kraken goes into the front of the chariots. Disorder is coming, but a kill is unlikely. So yeah, going for that. The knucker just sort of runs off a little bit, and then here's a weird bit, which is if my opponent wants to double charge into the revenants, which he does, now my giant can't be charged because these guys are in the friggin' flank of the giant, right? And then this piece of terrain angles out a little bit past this, meaning that when they try to go corner to corner, they can't because they hit the terrain and just can't go there. So again, giant mountain really helping out the Empire of Dust only. Yeah, but they do get a double charge with these are depth horrors and then these are Gigas. Unfortunately, depth horrors do not have Pathfinder, so they're -1 to hit right now. The Gigas aren't though, so that's good. And let's see how that goes. Here is the end of round shot. So you can see on the left here, the chariots end up taking 4 wounds from the Kraken. That's pretty bad. The Kraken has 15 attacks. It is on 4s though, so 4+ units. Sometimes they do this. But the big thing is that the Revenants only take 8 wounds total from the Depth Horrors and from the Gigas. And I know my opponent, the Mythicin right here, went for the Bane Chant and failed it because of course it did. So it's just messy. Only taking 8 wounds. I'm not even worried about it yet, especially with my heal 13. So, well, not counting Shobik, I've got heal 19 on the list. Or so much heal. So here's the other Mythicin. He's popping out. So yeah, looking pretty right now, and let's see how it goes. Bark skin is on this Kraken. That's what the gold token is. So moving into turn 3. Turn 3, yeah, so I can't, if we roll a picture back, right now Shobik is in the flank of the Kraken, but can't fit because the Thule are here and my chariots. So what I do is obvious. I take the chariots, I slide them, I spider walk over here, crab walk over here, more apropos, and then I hit the corner of the Kraken because I can, and then I slide into its flank, which is messy, but I get a flank charge there, and then I plan to just surge the chariots here just to get a few extra wounds. The soul snare is moved out of the way. I'm not sure where the soul snare went. I think it actually ran over here somewhere to go fight, trying to kill off the Kraken. I've got Mort here to get the surge, the one-hit surge. If it fails, I don't think I don't think this one's close enough to back up, but I also don't particularly care, right? It's just to protect Shobik, if at all possible. So, oh no, I am, because this is the one that's going, it's exactly 12, I remember now, because Mortibris wants to cast Banechant to get a +1 to wound. I remember what's going on now. The other wizard just goes for the heal onto the Revenants. Looks like it heals 2, so pretty good. And then the Revenants go into the Gigas with a giant in the flank because he was protected by a big fuck off rock. And then I get some mummies going into these depth horrors. They are hindered, so that isn't great. But and then I move these mummies. I think originally I was like, well, I'm gonna go for this surge, obviously, and then I didn't do it. So and then I have a, I have this, that's right, I have this giant. Why I did this mummy charge is because the giant had a flank charge onto the siren, and then if I kill the siren, I can overrun the 1-inch into the flank of these depth horrors, so that would be really bad for my opponent. And here is the end of the turn and how it turns out. So first off, on the left, you can see the Kraken is gone. The chariots did do some damage, but I did not get Banechant off on them. It didn't work. But Shobik just wrecks them and then turns to face the what are these? Thule? Yeah, the Thule. Still not sure. The MIA Soul Snare, it's doing something over there. I think it killed the Knucker this turn, is what it did, and then got out of their charge arc. Then we've got the giant here and the Revenants killing off that horde of Gigas. That feels good. And then the mummies here. So I do the giant first. I don't kill the siren. I do a decent number of wounds to her too. I just rolled poorly on the break test. It looks like, and then that makes it so these mummies, they're not hindered. They're not gonna one shot a horde of depth horrors, right? Because I'm hitting on 6s. So I do like 2-ish wounds, and then I've got a flank charge from Thule, which is not great. These mummies could easily die right now because I could get. I can't get double charged because these Revenants are actually back a little bit because I fell back, so I can't. Or I can get double charge. That's right. Yeah. So I can get triple charge. Double here, 1 in the rear. So, or 1 in the flank. Yeah, those mummies are probably dead. And here is an action shot. I have no idea what this. Oh, there's the scavengers. I see them. Hi. I've missed them, and they weren't in that picture. Yeah, they've just been hiding out the entire game because I'm just gonna move on to this last objective. When I can, because it doesn't matter what the scavengers do, especially because I'm winning by quite a bit here. So. Not a big deal, just gonna go grab objectives. And here we go on to turn 3 for the Trident Realm. You can see my opponent goes for a front charge with the depth horse. Is this a front charge? That can't be right. No, there's no way that's a front charge. I'm not sure what this is. So yeah, you can see the Thule have a charge on my chariots because the chariots went into the Kraken to make sure it died, and then when they fall back, they need to fall back 2+ inches to get out of the terrain. They fall back 1, of course, and have just had this little sliver in the forest, meaning that the Thule can see them, which sucks, but it's what happens. And this is an end of turn shot though, so the chariots live, Shobik lives, my giant lives after getting charged in the front by these depth horrors, and then the mummies live after getting. I could have sworn this was a flank charge. Oh, they charged the giant, right? I have a bone giant here. Yeah, I think they killed my bone giant because that's a flank charge. And then we've got the depth horrors going into the front of the mummies. I thought these Gigas could have got it. Maybe they were out of range. But anyway, the mummies are alive. The Revenants are alive. Everything's alive. So Not pretty. I think this giant's dead, so that's good. Soul Snare is still alive somewhere over here, just chilling. You know, relaxing. I think the Thule Mythican, yeah, the Mythican's here. I'd probably be moving the Mythican this way, just to try to kill off that Soul Snare, but, you know, you do what you do. And moving on to turn 4. So turn 4, Empire of Dust. Again, the Soul Snare is just out of shot. Who knows? And the Scavengers. Who cares about those guys? So I decide to take the Chariots. I back up because they do not need to be part of this. Let's roll a picture back. Yeah, so I back up because I don't want Shobik. Both these units have Ensnare. Actually, all 3 of these do. And Shobik needs to be killing stuff. So Shobik just, I back up with the Chariots, and then Shobik turns this way, walks over here, and goes for an obvious 1-inch surge into these guys. So that's the plan. I've got 2 Surgers lined up for it, so I can get a surge here, or a surge here, right? And this is the messy part, because my opponent was not aware of this rule, which sucks. I hate stuff like this where it's not a gotcha, right? Because corkscrew charges are things that it's just so prevalent at this point. I don't think to try to explain it to my opponent. Also, because I don't often see them, right, until my turn, because I'm just not that good of a player. But yeah, so you can see on turn 4, these mummies have a corkscrew here onto the Thule. I have a judge come over to explain corkscrews to my opponent, and it really sucks because it's just a bad feeling. I've got a flank charge with these Revenants onto the Depth Horrors, and then I've got a front charge onto the Depth Horrors with that Giant. Yeah, so a lot of flank charges this turn. Going for the 1-inch surge, I do end up getting it. And that's that. Let's see the end of turn shot. This is the mummy unit. The other one, it's just this terrain's not great for that. They are facing this way. So they face off against the Gigas. The other mummy is turned to face as well. They've killed off the Thule. The Revenants killed off the Depth Horrors. Even, maybe they're not hindered. But the Giant fails to kill off these Depth Horrors, so that's good. Yeah, Shobik easily kills off the Thule here, and I haven't fallen back yet because I just turned to face, right? So I'm facing this way, and at the end of the combat phase, I will fall back 1 inch. So we'll see whether I get flank charged or not. And then yeah, that's it. So let's move on to turn 4 for the these guys. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm super inconsistent with this. Shobik is facing like this because I remember in this game, my opponent and I were having a difficulty figuring out which way Shobik is facing because I had a different Shobik model for game 1 and then I broke it. I didn't even mention that. I broke the Shobik model. I just broke it off its base. So it's just really heavy. It shattered the base it was on. And so I had to swap out to the unpainted Shobik model. Man, this whole time you guys have been going, what the fuck? That's a different model. But yeah, so in this game I was like, oh yeah, of course, it's facing towards the club, right? So it happens. So the club, it's facing like this, and just seeing whether we end up with flank charges. We don't. When we fall back our 1 inch, both these units end up being in the front of Shobik, and they can't fit because of the stupid Chariots. So my opponent has to choose which are going to go in. And if we roll a picture back again, because I know you guys love this, the Chariots, this is a front charge as well. So there's no good thing that's happening here. And yeah, so my opponent decides to take the Thule into Shobik and then just sort of slide these guys off. And then the Depth Horrors here get back into this Giant, and the Gigas take the charge into my mummies. Now this is another weird thing. I thought Gigas had Pathfinder. I knew the Depth Horrors didn't, but I thought Gigas did for whatever reason, and apparently they don't. So I had angled myself. I just angled myself in the terrain because whatever, and my opponent ends up being hindered here. So interesting. And here is the end of the turn. It looks like. Just furiously rolling dice. I know you guys love that. Shobik takes a couple of wounds, not enough to kill him. Maybe not even enough to roll a break test. While my Giant takes a couple of wounds, my mummies take a couple of wounds. Oh, I think that's what's happening right now is the mummies are taking wounds. And here's a blurry end of turn shot. Blurry end of turn shot. You can see, yeah, Shobik is alive. My Giant's alive. But these mummies are dead because my opponent rolls pretty well. Kills them off. but might be a little too little too late at this point. We'll see. Turn 5. So turn 5 rolls around. So first off, I move this priest over here. It's the oldest trick in the book, just making sure I can't go into the terrain because I run into my model. So when I center up on these characters with my mummies, I do not end up being hindered. So the mummies go into the envoy because I'm going to hit and snare, so it's 5+. I'd rather not be on a 6. I decide to take the revenants. It looks like the revenants did not get a surge due to this. They just get another flank charge onto these depth horrors along with a front charge from my giant. I take the flank charge with my chariots onto the Thule. That is super bad as we are not disordered right now, so we're hitting on our normal 4s with 32 attacks and getting the thunder. Shobik decides to go into the front of the depth horrors, so 4+ to hit, but I've got the soul snare to slap some drain life on them to try to equal it out, and that's about it. I don't have a lot to do with my wizards because I don't want to come out. A Mythican could kill me, right? Mythicans have 5 attacks each, so my wizards are just sort of sitting around going, I guess we'll heal, while this one blocks your path. So yep, that's that. And here is the end of turn shot, and it is a mess. So first off, on the left, you can see the depth horrors are alive. They're sitting on 8 wounds. Shobik sort of shits the bed there, but that's fine. The chariots kill off the Thule and fall back. I did fail to heal them. No, maybe I healed Shobik instead. But you can see they life leached 1. So they've, I think, just adjust their facing a little bit. The giant and the revenants kill off the horde of depth horrors that were there, and then these mummies just run rampant. So let's roll a picture back. So first off, they go into the Mythican in the front, 5+ to hit. I've got Elite and Vicious, so 5s and 2s, 12 attacks, kill the Mythican. Overrun the 1-inch. Hit the siren. I actually end up hitting the siren in the side, so the siren. So it's 4+ to hit, 2+ to wound, and she already has 4 or 5 wounds on her because of my giant. Kill her, and then this ends up being a 2-inch surge, but I hit, or not surge, a 2-inch overrun. I hit the 2-inch overrun and then hit the side of the Gigas and get the triple this turn. So I kill all 3 of these, just boom, boom, boom. I don't think I've ever done. I shouldn't say I don't think I've ever, but it's definitely been rare that I've got an individual overrun, and I don't think I've ever got 2 of them. So that's a big thing. And it's just a mess. Let's move forward to Trident Realm. So Trident Realm turn, you can see the depth horrors decide to go into the front of Shobik, who is at full health right now. Not the best. And then we've got the Mythican going into my chariots, just looking to disorder them. And I guess those don't happen. Turn 6. Yeah, turn 6 is an easy one. All my units just fly around grabbing the objectives. Shobik kills off the depth horrors himself. Well, I do cast Drain Life onto him, and the chariots just go for a cheeky little bit onto the Mythican. Mortibrisk goes for Bane Chant, and it's right there, so I did get the Bane Chant, but that -1 to hit really does mess me up. I only end up doing 1 wound, and it's fine. So that is the end of turn, end of game. So let's roll back to sort of game state over here. So these are gone. And then the only thing that's alive is this Mythican. Shobik has this objective. Then I have, or no, that's one of his objectives. I don't have this objective. Yes, I do. Jeez. This giant actually turned to face that objective. So this giant ran over, grabbed the objective. I have the point there. I have this from the mummies, and then I have the other one from my scavengers, which flew off. The center objective is taken by the revenant. So I get a max hit on the VP there, and this ends up being a 20-1 victory because I get 4 or more VP, so +4, -4, +4 to me, -4 to my opponent. Again, I don't get the 1850 plus differential, actually because those mummies got spiked there. But yeah, I'll take a 20 there. So I'm sitting on a 39 out of a possible 42. So feeling pretty good at the end of game 2, and we walk into game 3. Oop. So game 3. Game 3 is obviously against Forces of Basilia. I played against an opponent that had traveled up from California along with the illustrious Jeremy Duval. And yeah, it was really cool playing against someone that from a different region, and apparently someone who travels a lot. As some might know, I don't like to use names unless I'm asked to on this channel. I know I just said Jeremy Duval, but he's a public persona. So anyway, if you like your names, just tell me to use them. I probably will forget though. So yeah, Forces of Basilia, and let's move forward into their list, or this is actually 2250, so I think I might have got this one. So first off, we begin with the Retribution of the Heavens formation, the much maligned, I would say, Alohi formation, which opens with 2 hordes of Alohi. One has the Brew of Haste upgrade, one has Pipes of Terror, and then there's an Alohi with the Blade of Slashing. In this formation, all 3 of those units gain Vicious for some reason. Then we have a regiment of Forlorn Guard. That's the named unit of Paladin Foot Guard. I believe they gain Crushing 1. A troop of Men-at-Arms with swords, so they don't have the phalanx. Then 3 regiments of Paladin Foot Guard, followed by a Dictator, a War Wizard with the Banner of the Griffin and Drain Life. Now that Banner of the Griffin might have been on the Dictator. I'm not sure where it is, but I think it's on a War Wizard. Then we have 2 more War Wizards, both of whom have Drain Life 6. And finally, Double Phoenix. So pretty cool list. I definitely have never faced anything like it. But there aren't a lot of Basilan players up here anyway, so it's hard to get those games in. And the ones that do exist don't really play casually. So yeah, the mission we played was Control. So if we roll into the picture here, Control is a scenario where you divide the table up into 6. This is actually 2/3 of the table, so I'm just going to do it like this. So on our table, there aren't going to be a lot of pictures of it, because over here we have an impassable and then an impassable, so just wasn't worth going over there, both of us playing elite armies. So we're just going to focus on 2/3 of the table. In Control, the center objective for on your opponent's side of the table is worth 2 VP. So this is worth 2 VP to the EOD, to me, and then this objective, or this one down here, is worth 2 VP to the Bassies. Oh my god. Great, guys. So yeah, that's worth 2 VP, 2, 1 and 1, but this area is worth 1 VP to me, and this area is worth 1 VP to my opponent. It's just extra on your opponent's side of the table. So that's what we do, and I forget to take a picture of turn 1 at all, I think. So, or at least Basilean part of turn 1. They go first, and let's talk about the armies real quick for deployment, and then we'll move into the movement. So first off, we've got this unit right here is the 1st Regiment of Paladin Foot Guard. These ones are the Forlorn Guard, I'm pretty sure, because they've got the... are these called heater shields, I think? Whatever, they've got the rounder shields. Behind them, we have 1, 2, 3 War Wizards. I think this is the War Wizard with Banner of the Griffin, or it's the Dictator with it. And then we have the Dictator. One of these is Dictator. The other 3 are Wizards. Behind them, we have 1, 2 Phoenix, which are pretty cool models. Then we have the other 2 regiments of Paladin Foot Guard. We have both hordes of Alohi. The Burb ones are the +1 speed, and Dragoons are the brutal ones. Behind them, we have the Men-at-Arms with Sword and Shield, and finally, we have the Alohi. So that's the list. For the Empire of Dust, you can see we've got 1, 2 Bone Giants. Then right next to them, we have 1, 2 regiments of Mummies. Behind them, this is Mortibris. Then we've got the Banner of the Griffin, Cursed High Priest right there, followed by the Horde of Revenants with Brew of Strength. Behind them, the Scavengers. We have the Soul Snare just chilling out in this terrain, which I haven't gone over either. I'll go over that in a second. And then the Chariots with Shobik. Now for the terrain, we have a Height 6 Forest, which is another one of these. These forests were interesting because they glued the stands in, but then made it so the trees could be removed, right? But that just made it so, yeah, you can actually see it over here. That just made it more annoying for me. So, and I know that, you know, this was all just someone making terrain for this event, so kudos to them. But yeah, we just pulled the trees out because it was easier. So anyway, we have a Height 6 Forest right here. Off to the right, we have a Height 1 Obstacle right in front of a Height 2 Hill. that might have been a little messed up, but okay. We have a height flat bubbling cauldron lake there, followed by a height 2 hill right here, and finally a height 6 forest with a height 1 obstacle. You can see peeking out over here the beginnings of I think it was supposed to be a height 4 impassable, but this side of the table is ignored the entire game, so don't worry about it. So this is the end of turn 1. The Basilians got turn 1, so they advanced forward. Just as you can see, the Elohi made it so, I mean, they just pressed into your lines. You know, it's a good move. With the Elohi just sort of hanging back, the Empire Dust decides to push forward. And I will admit, during this game, I began it and just sort of moved my units. I didn't really want to think too much. And I'm not going to, I'm not saying like, oh, I'm tired or whatever. I was tired, but that's not why I did this. I did this because I just wasn't paying attention anymore. So I did that. And then 2, the Soul Snare at least is making it so the chariots can't be double charged along with the Shobik, but then Shobik can get double charged by Elohi. So yeah, I think I'd rather have my Shobik than my chariots. But, I did what I did, so we'll see how that goes. I go for the Drain Life here. Drain Life does 2 wounds to some Elohi, which is not too hot, but then the Chariots fire and do 5 wounds to the Elohi, because why not, Chariots? You get it. So we get some wounds onto those Elohi. Pretty good. Moving forward onto turn 2, just real quick here. Well, there's a turn 1 picture, but that's not accurate. Oh, no. There we go. Turn 1, guys. Everything I just explained. Moving forward to turn 2. So turn 2, my opponent charges both the Elohi into the Shobik, while the rest of the lines just sort of advance forward. You can see these ones, these Palace Guard just advance onto the hill. Palace Guard are pretty difficult to get rid of because I believe they're 14, 16 nerve, iron resolve, and then they're def 5. So pretty good. And then with all this Drain Life, if I sent a unit in here, they all charge it and it gets drained 3 times, so that's drain 18. Solid plan, especially with this hill here, right? Because if he can, if my opponent here can get me to fight him over here, that means that the wizards can pop onto this hill and just drain onto me, which is less than ideal, as I'm not the best at range threats in this army. But that's that. Both the Elohi go into me. They do 11 wounds, which is not great, and then fail to kill the Shobik, which is terrible. But that's dice. It happens sometimes, guys. And yeah, that's it. Not a whole lot else to say. The Burbs are not close enough to fire any fireballs yet, nor are the wizards. So that's that. Moving on to turn 2, I guess for the Empire of Dust. I don't know why I took the picture there. Probably because I wasn't paying attention. So yeah, Shoei goes, well, whatever, I'll just saunter into these Elohi. I decide to take my chariots into the front of the dragon ones. It might not look like I charged, but I did. I think we just have a lot of overhang. I take the Revenants, and since they were over here, I move them 5 into the woods and go, well, this is like I think it's a 6-inch surge, and I have double surgers ready to go, so we go with that. The Soul Snare backs up a little bit just to facilitate that. Oh, no. The chariots did not charge. Right, if we roll back, the chariots don't charge because I don't want them to be hindered. So I move them to the right, and then I plan to fire my bows first and then walk into it. I forget to fire the bows. The mummies just sort of advance forward here, and then this giant has a pretty juicy charge here, or at least I think it is, because I can charge into these Palace Guard. The other Palace Guard can't see me, right? So even when I bounce back an inch, they can't see me. So I'm like, well, 1 unit of Palace Guard, you don't have any Bane Chance. Like, how are you going to kill that giant? And the answer is 18 Drain Life, I think. So, less than ideal there. Not the best plan, especially because all the wounds I do are just going to get healed with that Drain Life. So yeah, here's the end of the turn, this mess. So first off, the chariots plus the revenants, this isn't the most unlikely thing to kill a horde of Elohi. Granted, these guys are hindered because they charge through the woods, but still, that's 50 attacks on 5s and 5s and 4s, and then 16 attacks on 4s and 3s. So not the worst odds, along with a Drain Life, which I do aim at this unit, right? So I get them, I pick them up. And then I decide to take my Shobik. So I'm like, oh, let's see what Shobik can do. Oh, and I did get it on the first surge, so I was able to cast heal onto Shobik and heal three of his wounds off, so that's great. Shobik then charges into the other Alohi, which are sitting on a couple of wounds. I had done 7 to them total. 2 of them had been healed off, so they were on 5 wounds, I think. Roll back. No, that's... Maybe they're either on 4 wounds or on 6 wounds. So anyway, Shobik goes into them, hits with all 10 attacks, wounds with 9 of them, and just picks them up, right? Doesn't have brutal, so... so yeah, Shobik kills them off and goes, meh. Sitting on 7 wounds now. That's a brutal hit, losing both hordes of Alohi on a superior charge. That is a mess. So, but at least the core of the army is still good, and I'm about to lose a giant because of drained life, right? So that's cool. Let's see what happens. And yep, I think that's just an action shot. And here's turn 3. So turn 3 for basilia. So first off, these Paladin Footguard do go into that giant with all the drain life getting around it. It has to be the Dictator that had Banner the Griffin, because that's not close enough to drain. So yeah. Then we've got the Men-at-Arms just going into the Revenants to mess them up. I did angle myself a little bit, so any unit that charged me would enter the terrain, right, to hinder them. So there's that. They're just blocking me up. The Alohi goes for the finish on Shobik. Alohi, I think, has 6 attacks. 6 attacks on 3s with 1 reroll, and then wounds me on 4s with Vicious. I still have 7 wounds on me. So yeah, and I don't have the Banner of the Griffin around here. So it's plausible that this Alohi will kill off Shobik and just finish off this monstrous start I have over my opponent. Yeah, and then I think the burbs back here just sort of sit around. They're not needed just yet, as I haven't advanced far enough. And here is the end of the turn. So starting on the left, you can see, yeah, the giant's still alive, sitting on quite a few wounds. But then my opponent, I think, rolls like a 3 or something for the nerve. Rolls amazingly with the drain life. Does like 9 wounds, 9 or 10 wounds. It's crazy. So drain life 18, right? Like on average, you get 9 hits, and then you wound me on 4s. So you do like 4 or 5 wounds, right? It's like 9 or 10. Pretty nuts. And then the Palace Foot Guard go into, or 8 or 9. And then the Palace Foot Guard go into me and barely manage 1 wound. It's like a cock die, reroll 1 wound. It's crazy. They don't kill me off, obviously. Then we've got the Men-at-Arms not taking down the Revenants, only doing 1 wound there. That doesn't really matter. And then the Alohi does do a few wounds to Shobik. So I think I'm sitting on 11 or 12 wounds now. But rolls poorly on the break test, and Shobik is ready for more meat into the grinder. Not the best showing. And yeah, we move forward on to turn 3 for the Empire of Dust. I can get these by charging in with the Revenants and getting my Wizards and the Soul Snare out of the way. I get a charge into the flank of this Alohi and Shobik into the front. I move the Soul Snare. It can see this burb, the only thing it can shoot at, so it's just going to go for that. And then everyone else just breaks. So I go for the flank charge here onto the Foot Guard because I actually, in my head, I know my opponent told me this, but I'd had a couple beers by this point in the game because it was just wild. And I kind of thought they were that troop of paladins you can get. So I went, oh, I should probably send the mummies in there too because it doesn't really matter. And I send the mummies in to help out the Revenants. Because why not? I send my burbs forward into these Paladin Foot Guard just to block them up a little bit. The smarter move probably would have been to just chaff this thing up, but I was already winning by so much that it doesn't really matter, in my opinion. Over here, I get another corkscrew charge. So this is the giant that was here that took all the drain life damage into the side of these. That is the Forlorn Guard, and I send mummies into the front for good measure. And finally, I take the other giant and just crisscross into the unit I had charged the first time that are now on 0 wounds. So let's see how it goes. Pretty well. So first off, this giant does this giant sucks. It only does 1 wound. So gets 9 attacks, hits once, wounds once, does not do anything, right? The other giant, the mummies, just destroy the Forlorn Guard. I do like 20 wounds. It was insane. Got rid of them. Ugh, messy. The burbs just go into the Paladin Guard. I don't even think they wound them, but it doesn't matter. And then I killed off the men-at-arms there. That's to be expected. And the chariots plus Shobik kill off the Uralohi. So I don't even roll the chariots because they're not wounded. And Shobik, again, does 9 wounds on his own. And I just go, well, let's see if Shobik can just kill the Uralohi before I roll the chariots here. And yeah, easily kills him off. So Shobik just took a double charge from Alohi, killed one of the hordes himself to the front in just one go, and then killed the Uralohi themselves next up. So that is just some crazy dice. I feel bad for my opponent. Oh, and my drain life. Yeah, I do drain life and a lightning bolt onto this bird, and it dies, because of course it does. Yeah, ugh. Turn 4. My opponent, you can see the mummies are now correctly oriented. And that was actually, I want to talk about sportsmanship for a little bit. You know, I don't like sportsmanship scores, but it's not that big of a deal in this sort of a setting. And this is what sportsmanship is about. Even while I'm super ahead, my opponent, and I leave my mummies like this, right? Because we're just flying through the turns now. And my opponent goes, oh, you want to orient them forward, right? And I go, oh yeah, do you mind? And he goes, no. So even while losing in a horrific dice fuckery, my opponent still allowed this reform. So just goes to show you sportsmanship all around. The Palace Guard here charge into my burbs, ready to kill them off, and then Giant Burb charges into my mummies just to block them, while these Palace Guard, after my Giant had killed off the Forlorn Guard, had reformed, so it's this gray Giant, and these guys just go into the front of it, looking to kill it. And here is the end of the turn. So again, these Palace Guard only manage 1 wound, but Drain Life goes crazy, does a ton of wounds to me, and does well. The Big Burb does 0 wounds to my mommies, so there's that. The Palace Guard here kill off my Scavengers, so at least there's, you know, a dead unit now. Well, there are 2, because my Giant died. And then we've got the Palace Guard here doing a couple wounds, or maybe, no, I think that's 1. I think that's 1 wound to the mummies, which is whatever. And that is it. Yeah, that's it. So let's move forward onto turn 4 for the Empire of Dust. I move my chariots over here a little bit because they need to start going towards this table quarter, or table. Well, I guess it is a quarter for us because we're ignoring it. Yeah, so going for this table quarter. Shobik moves forward and then pivots. I've got a bit of a charge here. I think it's a 6 surge, but I do have the double surge here, so I'm ready for it. The Revenants are kind of trapped behind the mummies. I'd rather have the mummies charge. They go for it and don't regen their wound. Go in there. These mummies got charged by... Oh yeah, the Dictator charged me too with the Band of the Griffin. Yeah, the Dictator definitely had that. So yeah, it gets double charged. The mummies go into the Dictator here. My Giant goes into these Giant Slayers, hoping to get rid of them. And this pile of mummies is on the ground now. The Band of the Griffin one has now made it to the combat a little too late, but is backing up the mummies and the Giant, so they have some Inspire. And let's see how it goes. Yeah, so I do, this is 14 wounds, and then I've got another 10, which isn't all that great, because Shobik alone, you know, that's 20 attacks. It's like, so I've got like 20 attacks, got like 14-ish hits, failed a wound 2, so that's like 12 right there. And then I've got mummies, unhindered mummies to the front, and I only managed 14 wounds. Not the best, but then I double won it. So they are only at 14-16. Got that double one though. It is so legitimate. This game just broke open, guys. Moving on to turn 5, because apparently I forgot to take a picture, but we'll see you in a second here, which is, first off, you can see, yeah, these guys are still up. My mummies did kill off the Dictator in one go, and then went into the Big Burb, did a couple wounds, but not enough. I think I wavered it. So I think the Phoenix is wavered right now, and my Giant, again, I think it has 10 attacks this time and does 2 wounds, so, you know, we're moving on up. But yeah, basically nothing onto the Palace Guard there. And then my opponent's turn, we've got a counter charge from these guys. I think they counter charge, Shobik is still on a few wounds, but it's been healing the whole time, so it's like, you know, 3 or 4, maybe higher, but not too high. And these mummies are now on, oh, looks like they had 2 or 3 wounds on them, so it's not the 1 wound it was. And here we go, whoop. Yeah, I think the counter charge here is that these guys go into my mummies, because they can't really kill Shobik. The big bird goes into the mummies again. No. Big bird is wavered. All the drain goes into my giant, and along with these palace guards. So we'll see what happens there. It's nothing. So turn 5 for the Empire of Dust. This is the end of turn. The chariots just sort of again continue their race towards this table quarter. The revenants now join in, I believe, with Shobik to kill them off. The mummies go into the front here. Do poorly. That's only 2 wounds from the mummies, so these guys not worth their weight. What a game. I do again, so I've got 8 wounds from these mummies who are doing great. Into this bird, we waver it again, but this giant again rolls poorly. I don't even think I get a wound this round, so good job, giant. And we move forward on to turn 6. So turn 6 excuse me. So turn 6, my opponent sends again the palace guard into the giant. The bird here is wavered still, I want to say, so can't do anything. And then these palace guard, because I failed, go into the front of the mummies. And yeah, oh, I also had some drain going on, so maybe some of those wounds were there, but whatever. Here is the, nope, that would be my turn. So at the end of this turn, these do not kill me. And I don't think any of my units die here. No, they don't. And then Empire of Dust turn 6, I decide to take the table quarter here, take the table quarter here. I already have this one because so I have this one because of the mummies and because of the giant. But now I can get the corkscrew charge into the flank of the palace guard along with the front charge from the giant. And then I get a flank charge here with Shobik and the front charge from the mummies. So, yep, that is this is the last, I believe, the last shot, which is I kill off both the palace guard. The only thing left, oh god, the only thing left to go is Big Bird, who I try to shoot off with Mort and my Soul Snare. I don't quite get it, but I do get a waver, I think, again. And my opponent just has these wizards ready to go on his turn if there's a turn 7. And we roll it, and there is, because of course there's a turn 7. So turn 7 for my opponent, all the drain goes into my giant. Is that 23 wounds on that giant? That's a lot of wounds. What happens? I'm fine. So, oh god, oh man. Yeah, that seems right. So we're ready to go. And here we go with this is the end of turn shot. So yeah, I do take this quarter and this quarter and this quarter with Shobik and my mummies going into the bird to kill it off. The only thing my opponent has are these 3 characters. I do turn this this giant and then go for the surge to get into the lost side of the table that you are now seeing the impassable pieces for. But yeah, I go for the surge here. Only one of my surgers can actually get, so the giant moves 7, right? Only this surger can get close enough, and I need a 4, I want to say, to get into that 6 of the table, and I roll a 3. So yeah, it ends up being, again, a pretty good victory with a 19-2. Again, I get a +2 for having, I get +2 on scenario because I have, I control my opponent's size, so that's 2, 3, 4, 5. So 4 to 5 is worth +2. If I had managed to get my giant over here, it'd been +3 for that 6. So it happens, but and then for the attrition, I actually got the mythical 1850 plus. So yay! I'm sure you're all very happy for me, but yeah, I got it. Because I only lost the giant. I lost 1 giant, and I lost the scavengers, and my opponent lost everything but those wizards. So it ends up being a good victory for me. So it ends up being a 19-2, and at the end of the day, I've only seeded 5 tournament points total. So things are going very well, and I'll see you next time for game 4 and 5 and day 2, so we can see the wrap up of the event. Until then, bye.